I never thought I would find myself here, pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet. But here I am, and I'm hoping to get some advice or at least a semblance of understanding from those who might have been through something similar. My name is Tom, and I'm a 35-year-old husband who just found out that my wife, Jenna, has been cheating on me. I guess you could say that this is my journey through betrayal, heartbreak, and hopefully healing. Jenna and I have been married for 8 years. We met in college and fell in love quickly. I was drawn to her fiery spirit and sense of adventure. Over the years, though, life has taken its toll. We've both gotten busier with work, me as a marketing manager at a tech company and Jenna as a somewhat successful interior designer. I have to admit, things haven't been the same since she started her own business. She used to be spontaneous and fun, but lately she's been aloof and distant. I brushed it off as stress from work, but deep down, I felt something was off. The first warning sign came about 6 months ago when Jenna started spending more time at networking events and client meetings. She'd come home late and often reek of cheap perfume that wasn't hers. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself that she was just trying to grow her business. I wanted to be supportive, thinking the grind would pay off eventually. But as the months went on, I felt more like a roommate than a husband. When I asked her about her late nights, she would roll her eyes and get defensive, saying I was being paranoid and that I needed to trust her. I know trust is a cornerstone of any relationship, and I really wanted to believe in her innocence. But then came the day that changed everything. It started like any other Saturday. I had planned a little surprise dinner for Jenna, hoping to rekindle some of that old spark. I wanted to remind her of the life we built together. As I was prepping in the kitchen, I noticed her phone vibrating on the counter. It was a message from someone named Kevin. Now, I'm not one to snoop, but my curiosity got the better of me. I picked up her phone and saw the message. "Can't wait to see you tonight. You make me feel young again." My heart dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity, trying to make sense of it. Who the hell was Kevin? It certainly wasn't a name I recognized from her work life. I tried to shake it off, thinking maybe I was just being overdramatic. But as I went through her messages, I found more than just flirty texts. There were plans for secret meetings, intimate exchanges, and talk of feelings that should have been reserved for me. My stomach turned as I took it all in. It felt surreal, like I was watching some twisted drama unfold before my eyes. I confronted her that evening. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I told her I had seen the messages and demanded to know who Kevin was. The look on her face was a mixture of shock and guilt, but she quickly masked it with anger. "You have no right to go through my phone, Tom. You're being ridiculous." She deflected and accused me of being paranoid, just like I'd feared. It was infuriating to see her shift the blame back on me, but I pressed on. When I finally got her to admit it, when her facade cracked and the truth came tumbling out, I felt a wave of emotions wash over me. Jenna's voice was shaky as she tried to explain, saying I didn't pay attention to her needs and that Kevin was just someone who made her feel alive again. It was as if a knife had twisted in my heart. I didn't just feel betrayal. I felt ashamed, angry, and utterly lost. That night as I lay in bed, the weight of her words hung over me. I had so many questions rolling through my mind. How could she do this to me? Why didn't I see the signs sooner? I never believed I would be the guy who gets cheated on. But here I was, facing the reality of a crumbling marriage. As I replayed the night in my head, I realized I needed to figure out what to do next. The emotional roller coaster was just beginning, and I had to brace myself for the tough decisions ahead. I'll share my emotional journey and next steps in the coming parts. After that night of confrontation, I felt like I was living in a nightmare. Jenna's betrayal echoed in my mind, and I couldn't escape the suffocating feeling of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I was caught in a storm of emotions, each wave crashing harder than the last, and I had no idea how to navigate through it. The next few days were torturous. I went to work, but my mind was elsewhere. I could hardly focus on my tasks, and my colleagues probably noticed the dark circles under my eyes. I kept replaying Jenna's words, how I had made her feel neglected, how she sought comfort in Kevin, and how she felt young again with him. I wanted to scream, to shake her and ask how she could throw away everything we had built together for some fleeting thrill. I decided to dig deeper. If she thought she could lie to me, then I needed to know the full extent of her deceit. I started going through her social media, looking for any clues I had previously overlooked. It felt like an invasion of privacy, but I convinced myself it was necessary for my own peace of mind. What I found was even more devastating. Photos of her and Kevin together surfaced, taken at various locations around town, pictures that should have been reserved for our memories. They were smiling, laughing, and looking completely at ease with each other. I could barely breathe as the waves of betrayal crashed over me again. I reached out to a friend, Mike, who had been through a similar situation. He listened as I poured out my heart, and I was grateful to find someone who understood the agony I was feeling. He urged me to think carefully about my next steps, suggesting that I take some time to reflect before making any rash decisions. "You need to find out what you truly want, Tom," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "Do you want to fight for your marriage, or do you want to walk away? Either choice is valid, but it needs to come from a place of clarity." Those words stuck with me. I realized I hadn't given myself a chance to process everything. I began to think about the good times Jenna and I had shared. Our road trips, our lazy Sunday mornings, the laughter we used to enjoy. But then, the reality of her betrayal would crash back into my mind. It felt like I was stuck in a loop, one moment reminiscing about our love, and the next, consumed by the pain of her infidelity. That weekend, I decided to confront her again. I felt like I needed closure of some sort, but this time, I wanted to be calm and collected. I didn't want to lose my cool and give her more reasons to deflect or deny. I arranged a time for us to sit down and talk, away from the noise of the house and all the hurt that lingered there. We went to a small coffee shop and I could feel the tension as we both sat across from each other. "Jenna," I started, keeping my voice steady, "I want to know how long this has been going on. I don't want you to sugarcoat it, just tell me the truth." She looked down at her coffee, clearly uncomfortable, but I wasn't going to back down. "I know you've been seeing Kevin for a while now." "How long?" Finally she looked up and her eyes were glassy. "A few months, Tom, it just happened." I didn't plan for it. I was feeling so lost and he was there and I cut her off. "You don't get to justify this. You made a choice. You could have come to me, talked to me, but you didn't. You chose him." Her face turned red and she started to cry. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I just wanted to feel alive again. You were so busy with work and I felt so alone. I thought you wouldn't understand." "Understand what, Jenna? That you'd rather cheat than communicate with me." "You think I wouldn't have listened?" I felt my anger bubbling up again, but I pushed it down. "You threw away our marriage for a fling and now you're trying to make excuses." She looked defeated and for a moment I wondered if I was getting through to her. But then she started backpedaling, saying how it didn't mean anything to her and that she still loved me. "I made a mistake, Tom. I never meant to hurt you." Hurt. It felt like she was minimizing my pain. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, leaving her sitting at the table, and walked away. I needed air. I needed to think. I wandered the city streets feeling like a ghost in my own life. I couldn't shake the image of her with Kevin and it made me sick. I thought about how I wouldn't be able to look at her the same way again. The trust was shattered and I couldn't see how we could come back from it. Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, contemplating my next move. The emotional turmoil was exhausting, and I realized I needed to make a decision soon. I either had to confront the reality of our situation or let it fester and spiral out of control. I knew I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I had to consider what I truly wanted, even if it meant facing the painful truth of my marriage. Would I try to rebuild what we had, or would I choose to walk away and start anew? I knew the answer would come in time, but for now, I needed to let the emotions wash over me and find a way to reclaim my strength. As I drifted off to sleep, I hoped that clarity would come soon. The hardest part was yet to come. The following days felt like an emotional haze. I was going through the motions of life, but everything seemed muted. Work was a distraction, but no matter how hard I tried to focus, thoughts of Jenna and Kevin invaded my mind. I felt like I was walking around with a shadow of betrayal looming over me, and I couldn't escape it. I had countless conversations in my head, running through what I wanted to say to her, how I wanted to confront her, and whether I even wanted to hear any more excuses. Eventually, I decided to talk to Jenna again. I needed to lay everything out on the table, to confront her and give her the chance to take accountability for what she had done. I wanted her to understand the magnitude of her decision to cheat and the impact it had on me. We met again at the same coffee shop a few days later, our usual spot now tainted with memories of our confrontation. The barista, who had previously been friendly, now looked at us with pity. I wondered if the news of our turmoil had spread. Jenna sat down across from me, her expression a mixture of anxiety and guilt. "Tom, I've been thinking a lot," she started, her voice shaky. "I know I messed up and I want to make things right, I really do." I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. "You say that, but how can I trust anything you say? You've already broken that trust. How do I know this isn't just another excuse?" She frowned, biting her lip as if searching for the right words. "I know I've hurt you and I can't take that back, but I want to fix this. I want to go to couples therapy to really work on our relationship. I love you, Tom. I don't want to lose you." Her plea struck a chord in me. A part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that we could rebuild our marriage and overcome this betrayal. But another part screamed at me, reminding me of the pain and hurt she had caused. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. "Jenna, I won't lie, I'm torn," I admitted, my voice low. "But you have to understand that this isn't going to be easy for me. You need to show me that you're serious about repairing this. It's not just about words. You need to prove that you want this marriage to work." I could see the tears brimming in her eyes, and for a split second I felt a pang of sympathy. But then I remembered the betrayal, and it hardened my heart. "Right now, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can forgive you, and I don't know if we can go back to what we had." Jenna nodded silently, her face pale. "I understand. Just give me a chance to show you I can change. I want to be the wife you deserve." The conversation left me feeling even more conflicted. As much as I wanted to believe her, the image of her with Kevin haunted me. Would I always see that when I looked at her? Would I be able to put the pieces back together? After our talk, I went home and spent the night tossing and turning, trying to come to terms with everything. I needed to think about what I truly wanted. Did I want to fight for the marriage, or was it time to walk away? I thought about the love we once shared, the life we built, and the trust that had been shattered. It was a heavy decision, and I felt the weight of it pressing down on me like a lead blanket. I decided to take a few days to clear my head. I needed to find a way to process my emotions without being clouded by anger or sadness. I reached out to Mike again, hoping he could provide some clarity. We met up for drinks and I laid everything out for him, the betrayal, the conversations, and my deep conflict about our future. "Tom, it sounds like you're at a breaking point," he said, his expression serious. "You need to put yourself first. Yes, Jenna made a mistake, but ultimately you have to decide what's best for your own mental health." His words resonated with me. I realized I had been so focused on trying to understand Jenna's feelings and regrets that I hadn't given myself the space to process my own pain. I didn't owe her anything. My feelings mattered too, and I needed to prioritize my own well-being. As I contemplated my options, I decided to take a step back from our relationship for a little while. I needed space to think, to figure out if I could truly forgive her and rebuild our marriage. I knew it would be painful, but I had to be honest with myself. When I returned home, I sat down with Jenna and told her my decision. "I think we need a break. I need time to think about everything and what it means for us moving forward." She looked devastated, but I held firm. "This isn't about punishment, I just need clarity. I want to take the time to reflect on whether I can forgive you and if it's worth trying to mend our relationship." As I watched her fight back tears, something inside me felt both relieved and sad. I knew this was a necessary step, but I hated the thought of hurting her. I had been loyal and committed to our marriage, and now I was the one creating distance. Jenna nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I understand, Tom. Just know that I want to make this work. I'll do anything to show you how much you mean to me." I didn't respond immediately. I had to focus on my own feelings and my own journey. I needed to give myself the time and space to figure things out. That night, I lay in bed alone, grappling with the reality of the situation. I had made a choice, and while it felt heavy, it also felt necessary. I was beginning to understand that the healing process wasn't just about Jenna's actions, it was about my own emotional recovery. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this break could lead to clarity, a chance to truly reassess what I wanted from life and love. I just had to remain strong and true to myself as I walked this complicated path of healing and self-discovery. The days turned into weeks, and the space I had created between Jenna and me was both a relief and a burden. I found myself in a strange limbo, a place where I was both free from the immediate pain of her betrayal and still deeply haunted by it. I used the time to focus on myself, rediscovering hobbies I had set aside and spending more time with friends. Mike became my sounding board, and I appreciated his perspective even more during this chaotic period. For the first time in a long while, I started to feel a sense of control over my life. I wasn't waiting for Jenna to change or hopping for a miracle. I was making choices for myself, and that felt empowering. Yet, the emptiness of our home echoed through my thoughts. I missed the laughter that used to fill the rooms, the warmth that used to envelop me when Jenna was around. I often caught myself reminiscing about the good times, but I had to remind myself of the betrayal that had shattered those memories. I decided to take time off work, needing a mental break from everything. I went hiking, explored new places, and tried to reconnect with the person I used to be before all of this happened. I saw a therapist who specialized in relationship issues, and it helped me process my emotions in a way I hadn't expected. I learned that it was okay to feel hurt, angry, and confused. It was all part of the healing process, and acknowledging those feelings was crucial. While I was trying to mend my own heart, Jenna was also reaching out. She would text me occasionally, sharing snippets of her life and how she was reflecting on her actions. I knew she was trying to show me she was serious about changing, but I felt torn. Every time I saw her name flash on my phone, a cascade of emotions hit me again. Part of me wanted to respond, to hear her out, while another part wanted to keep my distance, unwilling to open old wounds. One evening, I decided to meet with her. I felt it was time to have a real conversation about where we stood. We agreed to meet at the same coffee shop, a place that had become a symbol of our turmoil. As I walked in, I felt a rush of nerves. Jenna was already seated at a corner table, her expression a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Tom," she said softly as I approached, her eyes searching mine for any sign of forgiveness. "I've missed you." "Yeah, I've missed you too," I replied, taking a seat. The weight of the conversation hung in the air like an impending storm. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, about us, about everything." Jenna nodded, her hands fidgeting with the napkin on the table. "I've been working on myself, going to therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did. I know I hurt you, and I'm truly sorry." I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. "I appreciate you saying that, but I need to know if this is just talk or if you're actually committed to making changes. I can't go back to how things were before." "Tom, I want to show you that I can be better," she insisted, her eyes brimming with sincerity. "I know I've made mistakes, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild your trust. I want us to be happy again." The sincerity in her voice was palpable, and for a moment I could almost believe her, but the scars of betrayal still stung. "How can I trust you again? What steps are you taking to ensure this doesn't happen again?" "I've cut ties with Kevin. I realized that he was just a distraction from my own insecurities," she explained, her voice steady. "I've also started focusing on rebuilding my business and working on my own self-esteem. I want to be the partner you deserve, Tom." Hearing her talk about cutting ties with Kevin was a relief, but I still had my reservations. "It's going to take time, Jenna. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. I need to see real change from you." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I understand. I'm willing to put in the work. I'll do anything to prove that I can be the wife you need." As I listened to her, a part of me felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could find a way back to each other. I knew the road ahead would be rocky, but perhaps it was worth exploring. Yet the other part of me warned against rushing back in, about the potential for more heartbreak. "I think we should take things slowly," I suggested, choosing my words carefully. Let's start with open communication and see where it leads us. If we're going to make this work, I need to be sure we're both fully on board. Jenna agreed, a hesitant smile breaking through her tears. I promise I'll do everything I can to show you that I'm committed to this. As we sat together, I felt a sense of cautious optimism settle over me. Maybe we could navigate this complicated journey together. I was still scared, but I knew that taking the first step toward rebuilding our relationship was crucial. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was willing to try if she was willing to do the same. Leaving the coffee shop that day, I felt a shift within me. For the first time since the betrayal, I had a glimmer of faith that things could change. I just had to keep my eyes wide open and continue focusing on my own healing journey, regardless of the outcome. As I walked to my car, I realized that this process was as much about my own growth as it was about us. I still didn't know where our relationship would end up, but for the first time, I was willing to embrace the uncertainty and see where it took us. The journey ahead was daunting, but I knew it was the start of something new, a chance for both of us to learn and grow from the ashes of betrayal. I just had to stay true to myself and remain vigilant as we moved forward together. The weeks rolled on, and with each passing day, Jenna and I began to navigate the fragile waters of rebuilding our relationship. We started having regular check-ins, where we would talk openly about our feelings, concerns, and the progress we were making. It was a stark contrast to the silence that had filled our home before. These conversations were filled with vulnerability and honesty, even if they were sometimes painful. I could see Jenna putting in the effort. She was attending therapy sessions and working hard to improve her self-esteem. She would share snippets of her sessions with me, and it felt like she was genuinely trying to confront her demons. I found myself feeling a mix of hope and skepticism. It was refreshing to see her dedication, but I couldn't shake the fear that it might all be temporary. One evening, I came home after a long day at work, and Jenna surprised me with dinner. The table was set with candles, and the warm aroma of pasta filled the air. It was a sweet gesture, and for a moment I felt a sense of normalcy returning. We sat down to eat, and I could see the anticipation on her face as she watched me take the first bite. "How is it?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with hope. "It's delicious," I replied genuinely. I could tell she had put a lot of effort into it, and I appreciated her thoughtfulness. As we ate, we talked about lighter topics, our favorite vacation memories, plans for summer, and even our favorite TV shows. I let myself relax, reveling in this glimpse of the life we once had. But in the back of my mind, I still felt the undercurrent of uncertainty. The shadow of her betrayal loomed ever so slightly, and I was still grappling with the fear of losing myself if I let my guard down completely. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Jenna turned on some music, and for a moment we swayed together, lost in the rhythm of the moment. I caught a glimpse of the woman I had fallen in love with, the one who could light up a room with her. Laughter and passion. But then I felt the weight of reality crash down on me. How could I trust that this was real? I decided to bring it up. "Jenna, I appreciate all of this, really, but I have to be honest, sometimes I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's hard for me to shake off the past." She pulled back slightly, her expression earnest. "I know, and I'm so sorry for that. I can't change what happened, but I can promise you that I'm committed to earning your trust back. I want you to feel safe with me again." It was a reasonable response, but I still felt a knot in my stomach. "I want to believe you, but it's going to take time. I need to see consistent effort, not just moments of clarity. I need to know you're all in." "Of course," she said, her voice steady. "I understand. I won't rush you. I just want to show you that I can be the partner you need." With that, I felt a little lighter. We were both navigating a complicated emotional landscape, but the openness felt like a step in the right direction. We agreed to take things slow, to continue our check-ins and explore the depths of our feelings together. However, as the days turned into weeks, I still had moments of doubt. The memories of her affair haunted me in unexpected ways. I'd see couples at the park, laughing and holding hands, and I'd wonder if we'd ever get back to that place. I feared that I might always be looking over my shoulder, waiting for the betrayal to resurface. One day, I decided to take a leap of faith. I reached out to Jenna and suggested we go on a weekend trip to the cabin we used to love. It might be nice to reconnect in a familiar setting. I proposed, hoping it would help rekindle some of the lost intimacy. Jenna was ecstatic about the idea, and I could see the hope in her eyes. We packed our bags and headed out for the weekend, both of us eager to leave the past behind, at least for a short while. When we arrived at the cabin, it felt like stepping back in time. The smell of pine and the sound of the lake lapping against the shore greeted us. We settled in and I could feel the tension begin to lift. We spent the first day hiking, talking, and reminiscing about the good old days. Laughter echoed throughout the cabin, and for a brief moment I allowed myself to forget the pain. That night we sat by the fire and it felt almost magical. The flames danced in the darkness, casting a warm glow around us. Jenna looked at me, her eyes shimmering in the light. "I remember how we used to spend nights like this, just talking for hours," she said softly. "Yes, I miss those times," I replied, feeling a wave of nostalgia wash over me. As the fire crackled, Jenna took a deep breath. "Tom, I want you to know how much I appreciate you giving us another chance. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm trying my hardest to prove to you that I can be better." "I can see that, Jenna," I said, my heart softening. "But I still need to be cautious. It's hard for me to forget what happened, and I don't want to rush back into anything without fully processing it." "Of course, I wouldn't expect anything less," she replied, her voice gentle. "I just want you to know that I'm committed to this, and I'll do whatever it takes to regain your trust." As we sat there, surrounded by the warmth of the fire and the embrace of the night, I felt the flicker of hope growing stronger. Maybe this weekend could be a turning point for us. Perhaps it could help me find the strength to forgive and rebuild. But I also knew I had to remain vigilant. This journey was far from over, and I needed to prioritize my emotional well-being as we moved forward together. I had to remind myself that healing wasn't linear. It would take time, patience, and open communication. That night, as we drifted off to sleep in the cabin, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. Maybe we could find our way back to each other and create a stronger foundation built on honesty and commitment. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to embrace it, one step at a time. The weekend at the cabin turned out to be a pivotal moment in our journey. The combination of nature, nostalgia, and open dialogue allowed us to connect in a way I hadn't expected. We laughed, shared memories, and even opened up about our fears. Being away from our usual routine seemed to strip away some of the baggage we carried, if only for a short while. As we packed up to leave, I felt a sense of renewal. The trip had given me a glimpse of what we could have again, but I also knew that it would take consistent effort. Trust wouldn't magically reappear. It needed to be earned piece by piece. Back home, life resumed its familiar pace. We continued our check-ins, and I noticed Jenna's determination to change. She was more engaged in our conversations, actively listening to my concerns and vulnerabilities. There were still tough moments, of course. Old wounds would occasionally resurface, and I would feel that familiar pang of jealousy or doubt. Each time we would address it together, and I was surprised at how much our communication had improved. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, Jenna turned to me. "Tom, I've been meaning to ask you something," she said, her voice serious. "Sure, what's on your mind?" I replied, sensing the weight of her words. "I know we're still in the process of working things out, but I wanted to know how you feel about couples therapy. I've found a good therapist who specializes in rebuilding trust after infidelity, and I think it could help us even more." Her suggestion caught me off guard. I had been hesitant about formal therapy before, but I realized that this could be a valuable opportunity. "I think that could be beneficial," I said slowly. "I want to explore all avenues to make this work." We decided to schedule our first session for the following week. As the day approached, I felt a mix of nervousness and hope. I had been pushing myself to confront my feelings about the past, but I also knew that talking to a professional could provide us with invaluable tools to navigate our relationship. When we arrived at the therapist's office, I was surprised to see how welcoming and calm the environment was. The therapist, Dr. Harris, greeted us with a warm smile, and I felt a bit of my anxiety dissipate. We started the session talking about our goals for therapy and what we hope to achieve. After some initial conversation, Dr. Harris turned her attention to each of us. Tom, what do you feel is the biggest barrier to rebuilding trust? I took a deep breath. I think it's the fear of being hurt again. I want to believe that things can change, but there's always that nagging doubt in my mind. Dr. Harris nodded, encouraging me to continue. And Jenna, how do you feel about that? Jenna looked at me, her eyes filled with sincerity. I understand why he feels that way. I made a terrible mistake, and I know I can't erase the hurt. I want to show him that I'm committed to change, but I also recognize that it will take time. The session unfolded with honesty and vulnerability, and I felt a sense of relief knowing we were both on the same page. Dr. Harris guided us through exercises aimed at improving communication and understanding, and by the end of the session, I felt a renewed sense of hope. As we left the therapist's office, Jenna squeezed my hand. I'm really glad we did this. I think it's a step in the right direction. Me too, I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me. It was a simple gesture, but at that moment it felt like we were making progress together. The following weeks were filled with sessions and discussions that, while challenging, felt transformative. We tackled difficult topics, learned to listen without interrupting, and practiced expressing our needs and desires. I began to see Jenna in a different light, one where I could appreciate her growth and commitment to change. However, there were still moments when the memories of her affair would creep in, unexpected triggers that would spark feelings of jealousy, anger, or pain. During one of our therapy sessions, I opened up about a recent incident where I felt a pang of insecurity after seeing Jenna interact with a male colleague. Dr. Harris encouraged me to voice my feelings without blame, and it turned into a productive conversation. Jenna, when I saw you laughing with him at the networking event, I felt a wave of insecurity because of everything that's happened. I admitted, my voice steady but vulnerable. I understand, Jenna replied, her expression one of empathy. I never want to make you feel that way. I'll make an effort to communicate better when I'm with clients, especially if there are other men involved. It was moments like this that helped reinforce the idea that we were both committed to change. Each time I spoke my truth, it felt like a tiny brick was being laid in the rebuilding of our trust. I realized that healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about learning to navigate the new landscape together. As months went by, I started to feel a shift in our relationship. The laughter returned and we began to create new memories, ones that felt more authentic because they were built on a foundation of honesty and understanding. I felt more secure in our bond, though the journey was still ongoing. One evening, as we cuddled up on the couch watching our favorite show, I turned to Jenna. You know, I think we're really doing this. I can see the changes, and I feel like we're building something stronger together. She smiled, her eyes bright. I'm so grateful for your willingness to work through this. I've learned so much about myself and what it means to be a partner. I promise to keep pushing myself to grow. In that moment, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. The road had been rocky, filled with heartache and uncertainty, but we were charting a new path. While the past would always be a part of our story, it no longer defined us. Instead, we were creating a future grounded in commitment, communication, and love. As I looked into Jenna's eyes, I knew we still had challenges ahead, but I also felt a sense of peace. We were both willing to fight for our relationship, and that was a powerful thing. In the end, I learned that even in the face of betrayal, there's the potential for growth, forgiveness, and renewal. Healing takes time, effort, and a willingness to be vulnerable, but if both partners are dedicated to the journey, it can lead to a stronger, more resilient love. And for that, I felt immensely grateful.